Hi, folks, and welcome to Windows in the Cloud, our new tech series to Windows 365 for IT pros like yourself. So I'm very pleased and very excited to be joined by Christian Montoya to talk about Windows 365 Enterprise and Azure AD Join support, which we announced today. So hi, Christian, how are you doing?
Hey, doing pretty good down here in sunny San Diego.
Yeah, you always have to throw that in, right? Like we are here in rainy Seattle and you're there laying down in the sun every day. You're working. No, that's not true, of course. But glad to have you here. And can you tell the viewers a little bit more about yourself and your role as part of Microsoft?
For sure. So I'm a program manager as well on the Windows 365 team. Been here for over 6 years, and actually I started off on the remote desktop team on the Azure Virtual Desktop team, specializing in identity authentication, and I moved over to the Windows 365 team as part of building the service, building that curated offering that's built on top of Azure Virtual Desktop, and so they're great partners with us, and we work with them every day, and so I'm just excited to bring this identity and authentication over to Windows 365. And also, as you know, personally, I'm really excited for this feature. I have been working on this, I don't even know, 2 or 3 years already. So I'm just really excited to show it off and to show it to you.
Yeah, it's great to have you finally releasing what you have been working on for like the last couple of years. And I know you from like back in the RDS days as well, presenting at Ignite about like a protocol feature or something like that. So it's great to have you as part of this team, incorporating all that knowledge and experience to build this great service, Windows 365. So you said you are responsible for Azure AD and everything related to identity. So what have been like the things that you have been working the most on, or were like the more intense work related things that you have been doing as part of this feature? Can you share a little bit more about those insights?
Sure. So the most challenging thing about Azure AD Join is just making sure we can get that device registered and joined. So if you look at across all of the other Microsoft solutions, there are different ways that they've done it, whether it's a bulk enrollment package, whether it's autopilot, whether it's an Azure extension. But basically, none of these really worked in what we wanted to support at scale for enterprises. So we had to work across Microsoft to create a brand new mechanism. And that's one key feature that I'll talk about more with this Azure AD Join, but it really makes it flexible. That way we can do the Azure AD Join on Cloud PCs no matter where you want to place them.
Yeah, and I think this is a great example as well, where we are as a product, as a software as a solution, SaaS solution, in comparison to other products like AVD, which is a platform as solution, and as well other products just in market, that we have that focus on experience. Like we want to make it as easy as possible for both the IT admin to configure Windows 365 Enterprise or Business, but as well for the end user to connect to, right? So I think you wrapped it up pretty nicely there. So can you share a little bit more about like the announcement today around supporting Azure AD? Like Windows 365 Business already supports this, right? So can you share a little bit about that journey and how this all comes to life in the Windows 365 Enterprise product today?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So we started off when we GA'd Windows 365, our Windows 365 Business offering already supported Azure AD Join in what we had then, but this is a brand new, way more improved, and so that's what we're excited with the Azure AD Join public preview that's being announced today. And later on, Christian, I'll go ahead and show you what that looks like. But essentially, as you mentioned, part of this service is to try to make it as easy as possible for customers to spin up Cloud PCs for their users. And so simplification was a huge part in what we developed here.
Yeah, it's great to be on that journey together while incorporating, as I said earlier, all that lessons learned from customers that have been doing this themselves. And now we are able to, build that into a SaaS solution and make it sort of disappear behind the covers and make it so standard and easy to configure, to use a Cloud PC from any device wherever you go. So can you share a little bit more about those other benefits we introduced with Azure AD Join support for our enterprise product today?
Yeah, exactly. So it really lights up a couple scenarios. When we release with Windows 365, we are a per user per month license service. So you purchase the license, assign it, and then you choose how that user gets their Cloud PC. And so this is really embracing that model because now with this Azure AD Join technology, really everything can be hosted behind the scenes, and you don't have to bring any more Azure subscriptions whatsoever. And so we know we have a lot of enterprises that do have Azure, that do have that expertise, that want to manage their networks. But at the same time, we know that there's a growing audience, growing enterprise customers that either don't have that expertise today, or they want to start to offload as much of the Azure networking, Azure subscription knowledge as much as they can, and let Microsoft handle that for them. So that's really the biggest one. There's really a couple others too. Is we know a lot of customers came on board to Microsoft with Office 365, well, which is now Microsoft 365, and especially those cloud-only organizations. We didn't really have a good way to give them a desktop in the cloud because up until now, you had to have a Windows Server Active Directory. You basically had to bring all your users from Azure AD back onto Active Directory locally and then sync them back up. And we know that's not really a full solution. And so that's the other key piece is that now for these cloud only organizations, we can go ahead and support you with desktops in the cloud.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And like just that example that you just throwed in as well, like you can purchase a license and then you go into the Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center portal and just create a Cloud PC to log on to from any scenario, like a web portal or Windows or Android or Mac or iOS. We all support it without the requirement to spin up an Azure subscription, manage your own virtual machines and everything related to that. So I think it's a game changer to have this key feature to align the customer's journey to onboard and generate and provision a Cloud PC in just an easy manner without the requirements of Active Directory. We still would support that, right? Like hybrid will still be a scenario that we will support. Is that correct?
Oh, for sure. We know that there are a lot of customers that won't be moving off of hybrid Azure AD Join soon. So we're not trying to yank it out of anyone's hands for sure. We just want to make sure that we expand the options today, especially because we've, as a company, we've been investing in Azure AD Join, and so we want to continue that story and push that further. But yeah, as you mentioned, we're not trying to move customers off of it. We want to make sure customers are where they need to be, and we want to meet them there.
Yeah, that's great. A great example of customer driven by customer feedback. So we will show you as well how you can continue doing that at the end of this episode, but. Before we do that, there's as well an option to configure a hosted network, right? Like use a network that Microsoft manages for you. Can you share a little bit more about that new option?
Yeah, exactly. So as I mentioned, and I think as you mentioned too, it removes any sort of need for the customers to bring an Azure subscription. So they'll have the granularity, they'll have the options to choose where they want to place these Cloud PCs because we know that location matters for customers that are in more regulated environments or they have data retention. That their data has to stay in specific boundaries, and so we recognize that, and that's part of what went into our feature thinking. So yeah, as we go through and I'll definitely want to show you where that is and what controls you have.
This reminds me of one of those early customers that got access to this new feature that we today announced as public preview on how fast you can onboard Cloud PCs in your environment because the VM and everything is set up for the customer in the Microsoft managed environment. So can you share some early preview customer stories on how fast they ramped up like 1,000 Cloud PCs now in comparison to the only previous available scenario for enterprise, the hybrid Azure AD Join approach?
Yeah, that's a huge point. With what we have today with the hybrid Azure AD Join, a big requirement is that the customers have to be running Azure AD Connect, and therefore, before we can fully provision and let the customer know that their Cloud PCs are ready, we have to sync the devices up to Azure AD, and that's entirely based on the customer's Azure AD Connect cycle. So that by itself is 30 minutes, depending on when we do the local kind of domain join. So we had seen with hybrid Azure AD Join, provisioning taking anywhere from 45 minutes up to, say, an hour 15. And then also, it also depends on the kind of image that you're using. So if the customers are bringing in a custom image, it's not pre-optimized by Azure, so it takes a little bit longer. With the gallery images and all the work we've been doing there, we try to work with Azure and make sure that those are as fast as possible. And yeah, with some of the customers that we had in the private preview, we've seen provisioning go as fast as 15 minutes, which is really really quick. And I'd probably say the more standard, the regular duration will probably be somewhere around like 25, 30 minutes. But it's still crazy to think that if you create some Cloud PCs, go off and get coffee and get a snack, and then come back, that your users' Cloud PCs could be ready. So that's really, really exciting.
Yeah, it's a really amazing story. I still remember connecting with that customer, and they share their scenario why they got excited about Windows 365. They did an acquisition, and they had to spin up some more Cloud PCs to avoid shipment of hardware, and this was a great enabler for them to just spin up like 1,000 Cloud PCs in just a matter of not only a day, or not a day, less than a day even. So it's really powerful, and it doesn't decreases the capabilities we can offer too, right? So even with Azure AD Join support, we can offer on-premise network connection capabilities to their backend services in their own cloud environment, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's the thing is really, because we are working so closely like with Azure and with Azure AD and the Azure Virtual Desktop team, we're constantly finding ways to make it faster and make it even more reliable. So yeah, we just, as part of the service, we are taking on the burden of trying to make it as seamless and, as we said, as easy as possible.
Yeah, and one final thing before I want to, of course, see it in action is the endpoints that we support. Can you share a little bit more about Azure AD Join, the identity as an enabler to connect to Cloud PC and the different platforms we support?
Right. So if you're familiar with the Windows 365 today, we support the Windows desktop, we support Android, iOS, Mac, and essentially any device that can load up the web client. And that was true with hybrid Azure AD Join, and that's also true with the pure Azure AD Join that's going to be now in public preview. So really, we are just trying to make it as easy as possible. So you use your username and password throughout. If you're on your Windows desktop client, you can use Hello. And it actually, with Azure AD Join, the Windows Hello for Business logon is a little bit easier because you don't have to be on a corporate VPN, or you don't have to be on the corporate network in order to really have a successful auth. And then, so that's today. And then in the future, we're going to continue working with the Azure Virtual Desktop team and the Azure AD team and really expand the support for Windows Hello for Business to start supporting passwordless and including FIDO keys. So that goodness is coming. But today, like in what I'll show you, and also in the public preview, you'll be able to use those exact same clients that you might be using today.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. So, yeah, let's get things in action here. So can you show how it all works in the Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center portal?
All right, so here we are in Microsoft Endpoint Manager. And so, yeah, we're going to go in and show you really the very first piece of where you'll experience the new Azure AD Join functionality. So you'll see here I'm in all Cloud PCs, but really the magic is in provisioning policies. So we're going to go in here. You'll see I already have a lot of them. And this is where it changes. And this is where it's really cool. So just like any other policies, you have your name and description, but really what stands out now is having that join type option. And so I think, as we mentioned earlier, hybrid Azure AD Join was the only option previously. So you didn't have to choose. That was the only thing that we could do. But now we give you an explicit choice. And like we discussed earlier with the Microsoft hosted network, this is the option where the customers don't have to bring any Azure subscription. They can just say, Microsoft, please host our Cloud PCs in this region, and then we say yes, we can do that. So for this policy, I'm going to do just Windows in the cloud, and then we're going to leave it with Azure AD Join real fast. And again, when you do the Azure AD Join and the Microsoft hosted network, again, we can choose the different regions that Windows 365 already supports.
And I remember that there are 2 regions as well today that have been added, right? So Germany and as well as Central US. So can you show those as well in here?
Yeah, you're right. It's these top 2. So whether it's Central US or for Germany, and like we mentioned earlier, we're very aware that customers need to run their workloads sometimes in certain Azure regions, just in certain geographic areas. So as we continue adding regions, they'll automatically just be updating this list. So you can always come back to see what else is new. And now just a slight pivot. If you actually did have your own Azure subscription and your own networking, you can still do Azure AD Join, but then you can go ahead and choose an on-premises network connection. So this you have to set up separately and prior to coming to the provisioning policy. But once you do that, it is now an option. And then again, you can create these now Azure AD Join Cloud PCs on the virtual network that you manage. But for the sake of this demo, I'll just go with the Microsoft hosted network, and then we'll do Germany West Central. For the image, I'm going to skip past this really quickly. We're just going to choose our default Windows 11 in Gallery. So now we're on the configuration section, and I don't think we've talked about this before, but this is something that other folks on my team have built. I'm really excited to share that. And so with these new settings within the configuration, we'll start to add more Windows settings that you can configure for the Cloud PCs at the time of provisioning. And this setting is the language and region. Essentially, what language are your users accustomed to? Do they recognize? And what is that language that you want them to see from day one of their Cloud PC experience? So previously, we could only do English United States, but we know that didn't really reach the needs of all the customers that we have worldwide. So we made some investments to add this dropdown. And as you'll see, it's fairly similar to any other kind of language selection that you might see, like an autopilot. Basically, the language and region, whatever you select here, will be that default language that we configure for those Cloud PCs. So it's as simple as possible, hopefully, to just get you up and running and get your users up and running in something that they do recognize. So for you, Christian, I'm going to do Dutch Netherlands. We'll skip the group right now. We can always come back and populate this later. So now that we're here at the review and create blade, you'll see that these are all the options we selected earlier on, reflecting all those choices when it came down to the Azure AD Join, the region, and also that language for the first time experience. And so Christian, I think separately we're going to show the Azure AD Join and the network connection. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Great call out. So we have a bonus content section on the Windows in the Cloud platform right now, and we will post a deep dive video of Christian demonstrating the provisioning flow as well as the on-prem network connection that you need to know to incorporate those new changes. So stay plugged into that flow as well, and we will release that as well over there.
Cool. So we're going to exit out of this, and I'm going to actually show you my Azure AD Join Cloud PC. So let me just go ahead and toggle to that. Perfect. So if you haven't seen this before, this is our Windows 365 portal where all our users would land and access their Cloud PCs. As you'll see here, I have my Azure AD Join West US Cloud PC because that's closest to me. So let me go ahead and open in browser.
And while we're waiting for this, folks can now experience the new web portal experience that we just released in public preview too. So if you want to enable that, you can click try what's new on the right corner and then take it from there.
And just like that, we are now at my Azure AD Join Cloud PC. As you see, not much changes here. I logged in with my credentials. I'm at my desktop. And really, other than that, nothing else about the end user experience changes. It mostly allows the admins to create cloud PCs, customized to your environment. Again, whether it's your own network or just Microsoft. But otherwise, the end user can still, again, connect from any of the clients that they already use today.
So this is great to see Windows 11 working with Azure AD Join. So how can people find more information about this new Azure AD Join feature?
Well, we're just published a new blog to the Windows IT Pro tech community. So definitely check that out. And that also links back to our documentation, which will have all of the in-depth steps of how to set it up, basically what I was showing today. So those are the two great resources.
Thanks. And we will make sure to incorporate that link here on the lower screen here. So besides that, how can people stay in touch with you if you have any updates to share and things like that?
One of the best places is that tech community blog itself. We love to see the feedback there. We also have continued feedback on our Windows 365 feedback community, which is ak.ms/w365 feedback. And then lastly, you can stay connected with me through my LinkedIn, which is search my first and last name at Microsoft, and you'll be able to find that.
Yeah, don't confuse Christian with Christian. That can mess things up a little bit. That's an internal joke, by the way. But thanks, Christian. It's great to see and great momentum and timing for releasing this feature as well, because a lot of customers are seeking for simplicity and as well simplifying their deployment as part of their digital transformation journey. So thank you, and I hope to see you back at some other future episode as well. And of course, thank you for watching as well, the audience, and I hope to see you back at some of the next episodes. And feel free to follow us on ak.ms/Windows in the Cloud and my own social media channel, Brinkhoff_C at Twitter. So thank you for watching.